All right, I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. So we saw that agents are being used for a lot of things. But of course, as you know, a lot of the agents that people are using run in cloud with the big model companies. And so, like, the original Web3 kind of movement started with, like, movement against the big banks. Now we have the big models. So anyway, this is just kind of a presentation on kind of like my experiments with running some of these models locally in a self-sovereign setup. There are several reasons you may want to think about running some local models. One, of course, privacy. So one thing that has struck me is that not only your prompts and queries are kind of being sequestered in like these big databases that can be used later to kind of do elicit all kinds of profiling on the users, but it's also kind of more sensitive in the AI era for two reasons. One, you are revealing how you actually think. It's much more deeper than the old school like web searching that you would do on Google and it would show up on Instagram. So it's much more deeper profiling. And second, the AI models themselves are much more capable of going through large amounts of data to exactly find the right information that they need to basically do all kinds of profiling, surveillance, and these things for the users. So privacy, I think, is much more important when dealing with AI models. And of course, if you're dealing with sensitive data, like, I was using it for, like, say, checking my tax accountant's work, then you want to use it on, in a very private way so that your sensitive data is not kind of leaked to the companies. So that's privacy. But beyond privacy, what are some other advantages? That's also interesting. One, zero marginal cost. You're running it on machines that you already have. Sometimes the local models are faster, not always, but sometimes they're faster because they're running locally. They don't have to make the round trip to the cloud. Zero external dependencies. You can configure it to be that way. Self-sovereign, full model control. And to some extent, you can think of them as uncensored. Although I've tried a few things, and especially like the Chinese models on some aspects are kind of a little bit more cautious, but most of the times I found them to be more uncensored. So you can do more things that you would not be able to do with the model companies. But cloud is still better if you are kind of wanting the frontier intelligence, because these models, the open source local models that you run, are maybe like about 6 months to a year behind. Context windows are still like about, say, 250,000, not 1 million plus that you have in Claude. So one setup that I've found to be helpful is just basically a hybrid setup where you could do local models that would deal with all your data, but then it can have an advisor that can send some redirected queries to the cloud and then get access to the frontier intelligence. So you're not losing out on frontier intelligence. It's just that what goes out to these frontier models is controlled by your personal LLM. There are 5 layers. I don't need to go into these, but very quickly, you have the chat interface or the agent interface. You have the serving layers for different models, the serving engine like Llama and so on. And then you have the model sitting underneath it. And then finally, you have the hardware. In my case, it's like the Apple M3 Max with 48 gigabytes of RAM. I've been experimenting with a 35 billion parameter model, quantized a little bit so that it can fit with 18 gigs of RAM on the laptop, and then the rest of the RAM is free for other stuff. And then only 1/10 of it is active, so the inference is quite fast. So if only 3 billion parameters are active, and say that's about 2 gigs of RAM, then if you have like 300 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, then you can get roughly of the order of 100 tokens per second of inference speed. So on this laptop, I'm getting about 50 tokens per second of speed, which is barely enough for it to be not annoying. But anything higher than 50, I think, is good. So let me maybe just show the kind of setup that I have. So here, Pi agent is this very popular open source agent that is kind of much more expressive, much more extensible. And then it's inside an AI jail or inside a sandbox where it cannot talk to any outside network because I don't want it to be exfiltrating my personal kind of data to anything on the internet, but it still needs access to the internet. So there are some localhost proxies that are running that basically are running the search engine, the open source search engine, pretty good. It kind of talks to Google, DuckDuckGo, and Bing, and all kinds of search engines that you can imagine. Via Tor, you can configure it so that you don't leak your IP addresses. A messaging daemon that runs locally so that I can kind of like say, read signal messages, email clients, and so on. And then some embeddings and PDF readers that can read, say, if I want to read some papers that I want to keep confidential and not share with the models, if I'm doing some confidential reviews for conferences and so on, those are very useful. Then obviously the advisor model. So there's a server running locally that will expose the advisor or the frontier model to which I can basically interact. So I'll just briefly present a little bit of a demo. Will not keep you long, but okay, let's see. So this is the model that I'm running here. This is the Pi agent running on the terminal interactive session. So on the first prompt, it kind of loads up, and there's like a warm-up time that it needs. But once it loads, I think the token speeds are fine. So a few features that I like about it, the UX is great. So for UX, basically, you can chat with it in a tree-like fashion. So you can explore different conversation threads. So here I'm kind of exploring some post-quantum cryptography, and then you can go into details of it, and then basically you can pop out and ask any new messages for me and so on. The interface is pretty nice, so I can bookmark conversations. I can search for some conversations that I've bookmarked. And then, here I was checking what are the new messages on Signal for me, and then I can even kind of reply that, reply on Signal, and then the model will take care of replying on Signal to my friend. And then it's kind of not clear-cut access in the sense that it can send any query or any message to any person on the Signal. But basically, once it replies, it will kind of have a human in the loop setup where I can go and approve whatever it's trying to send. So this setup is kind of influenced by some of the Vitalik's setup that he was doing, where he was basically having a local kind of daemon that was running the Signal daemon, and kind of that was hand rolled by him. So I kind of forked it and made it my own. So yeah, here it's chatting with, here it's basically sending us message reply back on Signal, and then I can go on localhost, approve this message, and then it will go to the person that I'm sending it to. So so this is just like some of the things that you can do with the local model, and I particularly like the kind of the tree kind of interface, so that I can explore different topics, go into different branches without kind of polluting the context. Because if you're kind of chatting with it in a linear fashion, then everything gets polluted. So it's nice to have these branches, and then you can navigate very quickly between them. Yeah, so this is pretty much it. If anybody's interested in kind of this kind of a thing, tinkering with local models, I'm very interested to chat more. And yeah, I'm happy to take questions.